Welcome to another episode of First Alarm Family First. This is going to be cool because, yes, we're talking about what we always talk about when it comes to PTSD and first responders, but we're also incorporating a really cool, I don't know, are we calling it a therapeutic method or it's definitely art? Carolyn and our guest is going to explain all this to us.
Daniel Sundahl. He is a retired firefighter, paramedic from Canada, certified clinical trauma specialist. He's also a world-renowned known artist. He also speaks on mental health. He advocates for it, but he captures his art that he captures. It just is so amazing how he captures the trauma that a lot of these first responders go through. And we're really happy to have him on here today. Thank you, Daniel.
Well, thanks, Jen and Carolyn. I'm really excited. I was honored to be asked to be on your show. So yeah, thanks very much.
So let's take it back. What first drew you into the fire service?
Well, that's an interesting story. So I was working as a dive master in the Cayman Islands in the late 80s. And part of the training to become a dive master was becoming a dive medic. So that's where I was first introduced into CPR and first aid, and I really, really liked it. And on the way home from school, I saw this guy get hit by this massive dump truck as he crossed the street. And I got so excited. And I'm thinking, what is wrong with me that I'm getting so excited? I pulled over, I ran up to this guy, and I'm like, I just learned how to do like the basic first aid. Like I learned how to do CPR. I'm like, I'm going to save this guy. And I went up there and he was like folded in half in his toe, and I had no idea what to do. But then the paramedic showed up and they unfolded this guy, and I was so excited. I thought, oh God, maybe I should do this for a job, right? Most people were horrified, and I just ran into it. So, and that was kind of how I started. And then I didn't become a EMT till probably 5 or 6 years later. That's how it started.
Point, Dan, did that excitement, and I think that's such an honest response, by the way, to that incident, because I think that is something that draws a certain type of person to becoming a first responder, right? Whether it's a veteran, whether it's a police officer, whether it's a firefighter. So what point do you think, can you pinpoint a point, right, where it stopped being exciting and you started truly feeling the impact of seeing certain things?
Yeah, I would say for me, it was probably 10 years into my career, I think. 2014 is when I first started creating the artwork. Mm-hmm. And as a form of recovery, so it's how I process what's going on. And it was kind of a weird thing. My psychologist had suggested it. He knew I was doing artwork and photography, and he said, Dan, why don't you start creating this artwork as a way to process what you were experiencing? And I thought, well, that's a dumb idea. I don't want to think about this stuff. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to sweep it under the rug and forget about it. And for you to give me a pill so I can go back to work. He goes, Dan, it doesn't work that way. You really need to step into it. So I tried it, and he was totally right. I started creating the artwork and creating how I felt versus what I saw, and it really made a big difference.
Wow. Were you always interested in like photography and art, or did that just develop with what you were experiencing through work?
Yeah, I was always an artistic guy. So I started doing a photography probably about 5 years before that. And I was taking pictures of my bulldogs and landscapes. And so my psychologist recognized that that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And now as a therapist myself, I do the same thing. I try to find a hobby that they're doing and try to incorporate that inside myself.
For a while now, I mean, I don't know if you call it a trend, right? But there's been adult coloring books. And one of the reasons there are adult coloring books is because it's proven to relax people. It is a form of therapy. Your artwork is far beyond an adult coloring book, and not to take away from that, because it's not just about drawing, Dan, for you. This is very specific when it comes to the images being drawn.
Yeah, so it's when I create the artwork, I'm very careful not to edit it or not to censor it, because if I do, it won't be therapeutic for me. So in creating the artwork, it is an emotional process for me. And if I'm able to purge these feelings out of my head into these two-dimensional pictures, well, then when I'm done, I don't have that same feeling in my head. They don't kind of invade me when I don't know about it, or I somehow capture it and it doesn't affect me anymore. Or I can have the emotion, but I don't have the physical response to it after I have that memory.
Was there a moment that you realized I need to share this with more first responders?
I didn't for the longest time. I didn't want to share it. I
Yeah.
thought, well, what are people going to think? Right? I'm not going to share vulnerable paramedics and firefighters with my peers. They're going to think I'm, why are you showing this side of us? Or another part of it was I thought that maybe I was the only one that felt that way. Right? So I didn't want to share it, thinking that, I was weak or I was only one. But when I did started sharing it, that's really when things exploded for me, because I didn't realize that other people were feeling the same way and really connected their own experiences to my artwork. And it was really validating for me. So it was really wonderful that I got that validation. And then I felt I wasn't alone at that time. So yeah, it wasn't my intention to share it at all. And I still have some that I don't share.
I feel like I should know the answer to this, so I apologize that I didn't do enough homework. Do you also draw on the experiences of other firefighters and paramedics? Like, do they tell you a story and sometimes you put their story out there?
I do get asked to do that a lot, but I don't unless I can associate with it.
Mm.
So if they tell me a story and if I can relate to it and I can feel the feels of it, then I can do it. But if I don't have the experience, then, which it doesn't happen often, because I think paramedics all around the world, first responders around the world, if we're doing it long enough, our experiences aren't unique to us. So I do that quite a bit.
Did you ever imagine this getting so big?
No.
You sharing. I'm telling you, when I saw those drawings, I truly felt what Alex was feeling. It was just in those pictures, you just feel all that emotion that's happening with the patient, with the first responder, and just in the room. It's so impressive.
Yeah, and I think it's because I don't censor myself, or I don't think what are other people gonna think, or what are other people gonna feel when they see it. It's funny because actually I connect more with people by doing that. Well, the less I try to connect with the people that look at it, the more I connect with them, because I think it's being authentic and being vulnerable. So if I can show that I'm vulnerable in creating the artwork, then other people that are maybe in that space can connect to it as well, and then they feel understood and they feel supported, and they feel validated as well. So yeah, it's been a wonderful gift for me for sure.
It's been 10 plus years since you started doing this. Is it like a schedule, Dan? Like, I'm going to draw on this day, this day? Is it when you're having a moment, right? Because we all have moments. Is it you being familiar enough, right, with your feelings and how you deal with it? How does that work?
Yeah, no, it all starts as a thought or feeling or experience that I have. And as an artist, I'll be creating artwork for the rest of my life. And as experiences happen to me, then I will create artwork based on that as a way to process and purge them out of my head. So it's definitely not a schedule. Once I feel something and it doesn't go away, I'm like, okay, I need to express this in some way. So I
Yeah.
think about it and an image pops into my head. And then the goal is to get that image into that picture. And I do it all digitally. So I take a photo, I stage it with my peers, take a picture, and then digitally draw and paint on top of that photograph. But I'm trying to recreate how I feel. So yeah, it only happens when I feel I need to get something out of my head. So this definitely not a schedule. But now I've created so much artwork that I do try to post something every day. Usually come up with a theme or a topic or a subject that's prominent in the first responder world, and it's good. Lots of people engage and talk about it. And the idea is to lower stigma, bring things, normalize the topics, which I think will allow more people to come forward with, maybe some of the stresses that they're having.
And you're also a certified clinical trauma specialist. How did you come into your journey, and how does it tie into the work that you do now?
Yeah, that's so what happened to me 2014, I was first diagnosed with PTSD. That's when I started doing the artwork. And then in probably 2022, the symptoms started coming back, and my psychologist said, yeah, you're done, Dan. You're not going back on the ambulance or the fire truck. And I'm like, shit, what am I going to do? So, which is a really difficult time for people that are medically retired, right? Like, it's part of their identity.
Right.
So I have, I'm very aware now of my purpose and my passion of helping people. And someone suggested that I maybe get into counseling therapy. And I thought, yeah, maybe that might be something great for me. So I went back to school and got certified as a counseling therapist. And that's what I do now, which is great. So I still work with my peers and I get to still fulfill my sense of purpose and passion. So it's definitely the right fit for me.
Is it hard, Van, though, to kind of relive some of those moments with first responders who you work with? Or is
I was
it,
really worried about that.
yeah,
Yeah, I was really worried about that. And I talked to my supervisor quite a bit about it. And I do work primarily with first responders with their trauma. And I think I'm able to separate myself and I can still have the memory or similar memories to what my clients have, but I'm no longer emotionally activated. So my nervous system doesn't get activated when I recall certain events, but I can definitely empathize with my clients. And I think they recognize that. And if we have that connection, then they feel safer or they feel safe enough to get into the juicy bits, I like to call it, where the processing and healing can happen. But it's a scary step to go into because they really need to step into it and face it and feel it. And they need to be able to feel that they're in a safe place to do it. And I think because of my experiences in the past, they feel that I understand, which I do. And, but yeah, no, I not yet. I'm still a fairly new counselor. So it's only been about a year and a half, couple of years. So far, no.
good.
You know, the one thing that I do sometimes get, so for me, I was married. The trauma really messed up my marriage. It really affected me in a really heavy way and my wife. And we ended up divorcing because of it. And so now I have specialized training in helping couples with trauma. My ex-wife and I we're still good friends now because, you know, we kind of worked a lot of things out. But, you know, it's a tough time, right, for everybody involved. And so now I do workshops and I try to help spouses as much as I do first responders to give them a better understanding of what's happening. And the first responder, I'm like, look, this is how trauma is affecting your partner, and to have an understanding of what's actually happening. And we use this term called unified detachment, where the trauma is the trauma, right? So the trauma is this external stressor that's coming into your relationship, and recognizing that, and then together working on that. I think if my wife and I had a counselor that understood trauma more, we may still be together, right? So it's something that I'm very passionate about. When I do couples counseling now, and I recognize where I was, sometimes that tweaks me a little bit, right? And I recognize it, and I'm upfront and I'm forward with it. So that's the one thing that I probably affected the most.
Yeah. You've talked a lot about like post-traumatic growth in your talks and stuff. Can you explain what that means in real life terms, like for those who might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because it's great that all this attention is for PTSD. You know, it's more awareness. That's fantastic. But there's a gold lining around it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I like the term of being tragically optimistic,
Mm-hmm.
meaning we need to look into the trauma, we need to look into our experiences, but also be aware that we can potentially be better because of it. And I'm living proof of post-traumatic growth. Carolyn, you are living proof of post-traumatic growth. Like the stuff that you're, and Jen, I'm sorry, I don't know a lot about your past or your history, but
Okay.
I think a lot of people have had trauma in their past and they are better because of it. But to recognize that and to give ourselves a little bit of grace and credit for the experiences that we've had and how we've managed and how we're better in many ways because of it, which is sometimes hard to see. Yeah, post-traumatic growth is not a term that I invented. It's been around for a really long time. But I think it's really important for people to be aware of it. You know, you may be struggling now, but if you can work through it and do the hard work, you can actually be better. It's beyond resilience. Resilience is kind of getting back to where we were. But post-traumatic growth is bouncing beyond to where you were. And it's really a positive message of hope that I encourage. And, you know, when I do my lectures and my workshops and even with my clients, when the timing is right, is it's an important term that people should be aware of.
And I like that term. And I only think there's one other person, Carolyn, who we have spoken with in the past 10 months who used post-traumatic growth. And so this is only the second time that that's come up. And I agree. There's a lot of focus on PTSD, right? There's a lot of focus on the struggle, the resilience, but let's focus on where both of you are right now, which is commendable. right? I want to rewind just a little bit, Dan, when you were talking about you and your ex-wife. Carolyn and I, my husband's a firefighter, my father's a retired firefighter. So there's the gist of the background for you.
So you're in it.
So I grew up with it. I live with it now. It's a huge part of my life. But when you were talking about your ex-wife, a lot of times there are firefighters who watch our show. What would you say to them if they have not shared yet with their significant other what their struggles are because they're trying to protect them?
Yeah, that's very common. That's how I felt too, where we don't want to share, we don't want to traumatize our partners. So we try to keep it in, and we try to keep work at work. And the problem is sometimes subconsciously you can't do that, right? Where you try to shut yourself off of that, but often we shut everything out. So something that happens with trauma, here's an example. It's called anhedonia, where just the way the brain works with trauma, we lose the capacity to feel joy for anything. So we come home, and of course our partners feel that there's less intimacy, there's less affection. And of course our partners are going to feel that, well, they don't love me anymore, or something happened, or there's another person involved, right? And then if it gets challenged, because another symptom of trauma is that our fuses get really short, which is actually a fear response. So the anger comes out of fear, because in trauma we have a sense of losing control of what's happening, and we try to get that back through aggression sometimes. So when we get challenged on it, then fear comes out. And of course your partner is thinking, okay, well, now you're turning into a bit of a jerk, right? I'm coming forward with my concerns about intimacy, and now you're getting mad at me. And then it just kind of spirals. And then as that happens, then the symptom for the first responder is that they feel less in control. And so they feel more fearful and get more anger. But the truth is that in many cases, that the lack of joy, it's not just the joy that they feel toward their partner, which is how it gets perceived often in the partner, is they have the lack of joy in anything. They don't love anything. They don't find joy in anything that they used to feel. And it's hard. Neither person really understands how trauma can do that to a couple. Right. So to have an understanding of learning how that is, it's good to find a therapist that is trauma informed, that has couples therapy training. A really good model is integrative behavioral couples therapy, which is a model that they use for Veterans Affairs. And they use a model which is really trauma informed. So that is something I would recommend. I'm Gottman trained, and there's a specialized course in the Gottman Institute for helping couples that have had trauma in their relationship. So there's a different way to approach that. But what I would say to firefighters about not bringing the trauma home, you may be bringing it home even though you don't realize it in ways that you may not recognize, right? So the opposite of being tragically optimistic is being a toxic positivist, right? So we think, oh, we're just going to leave it at work. I'm going to come home, and so yeah, I'm fine. Everything's great. You sweep everything under the rug until eventually you're going to trip on it. And then your body starts to express the trauma. You have a sore back, you don't sleep as well, the anger, all these different symptoms that come up from storing this trauma in your body. So maybe, I'm not saying that happens to everybody, and I don't believe if you're a first responder, you're going to get PTSD. But if you don't want to bring it home, you may not be, right? It kind of, everyone's individual. I don't want to generalize everything. It depends how long you've been in it, and maybe you're doing a good job at shielding your family from it. But think about it if you may be bringing it home in other ways.
Yeah.
And if it's a concern, the best thing, communicate with your partner. Don't hide stuff. And if you need help, find a therapist that is familiar with trauma informed.
Yeah. In your experience, what are like some unhealthy ways that, they first responder may be trying to cope with their job?
Unhealthy ways?
Yeah. What would you say are unhealthy ways? Maybe they're not even sure they're even doing things that are unhealthy.
Okay. Yeah. Lots of unhealthy ways. Sometimes I ask, what do you do to cope with the stresses? And everyone gives me like drink, I gamble. I go like, well, what about some adaptive ways versus some maladaptive ways? Yeah. Well, the pathology of the trauma is often trying to regain control and avoidance of being activated by the memory. So subconscious things that happen are that may be very frustrating for the partner is, they avoid the short ways to get to a restaurant. Right? You go in a restaurant, no, I know this is a short way, but I don't want to go over that bridge because I did a call on that bridge and I don't want to be reminded. So we're going to go the long way. The partner doesn't understand. Right. So that's maybe where they're coping. And then when they get to the restaurant, I need to sit in the corner with my back to the corner.
Yeah.
It doesn't understand. Why do you want to do that? It's safe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's something that they may not realize they're doing. Their memories may be altered. Right. And sometimes the partner doesn't understand why that happens. Where they think, well, how do you not remember where you left the keys? Right. And this frustration, like, I don't know where I left the keys. So there's memory changes that can happen. That can cause some problems. So these are, I don't know if they're really adaptive or ways that people cope, but these are normal physiological things that happen with first responders when they have this trauma. Sleep is another one. They're really difficulty sleeping. Waking up in the middle of the night with nightmares and screaming. That's a bit of a pain for your partner to deal with that. Right? Cold sweats. Common adaptive, maladaptive, I guess, drinking as a coping mechanism, trying to numb out the feelings. Lots of different addictive personality traits as a means to try to fill that hole that the trauma left. So, food addiction into sex, even, going to the gym excessively. The behaviors, what I'm concerned a lot about are the behaviors toward other people in their circle, or how it affects their connections. Because for me as a therapist now, I really try to bolster those connections when trauma is present. And sometimes that's really difficult to do because it's hard, as both of you may probably know, that sometimes it's difficult to be with someone who's experiencing symptoms of trauma, right?
Is there a piece of work, Dan, before we wrap things up, that I don't want to say is your number one piece, right? But that is one of your favorites for whatever reason?
Yes, and it's people don't like it. But my favorite, and the reason it's my favorite is because it most accurately portrays the feeling I have into the image. So once I have the feeling, and if I can portray something that really clearly represents that image in my head, then it's my favorite. People don't like it. It's called The Demon Eats the Ambulance Driver, and it's pretty graphic. It's pretty dark. And it's this big demon. I use demons to represent trauma and suicide. And it's just how I felt when I was at that moment of I had a suicide plan and I was ready. And it depicts that feeling for me. And it's this big demon that's eating this paramedic. And the paramedic isn't defending themselves. And it represents that the first responder being consumed by their trauma. Right, they're not defending themselves; they're letting it happen because they are being succumbing to the mental trauma injury. And when I finished it, I felt great because I was able to capture this complex emotion and feeling I was having into this two-dimensional picture, and then I could make sense of it. Right, so it's my favorite, but when people see it, it's pretty disturbing.
That's heavy.
It's really heavy. Well, so, it's a heavy thought of contemplating ending your life. That's a heavy, how much harder does it get? Right.
Yeah. But when I've seen that illustration of yours, honestly, it's exactly what I feel Alex was feeling in that moment. Like he just sort of came to the demon, like he couldn't do it anymore. Like it was like exactly. He just couldn't fight back.
Yeah. And it's like succumbing to a physical injury.
Yeah.
Right. And people that have been at that point and they see that image, they get it. Yeah. They really understand it. Right. And they kind of felt the same way. And that's how I felt. But I'm lucky that it was just by chance that someone was able to pull me out of my darkness.
Can you remind everybody where they can see all of your artwork?
Yes. So you can find me. I have a few websites, but my art website is dansunphotos.com. So it's the first three letters of my first and last name. And then my therapist stuff is dansunhealth.com. So dansunphotos.com for the arty stuff, and then Dance on Health for the therapeutic stuff. That's where you can get hold of me.
Amazing. Thank you. You have any upcoming projects that you want to shout out?
Yes, I do. I have. So talking about post-traumatic growth, I'm lucky that I get to travel around the world and meet so many people, that I see examples of post-traumatic growth in so many people, that we have our own conference. So we have our own foundation, our own charitable organization up here in Canada, and we have our own conference, our post-traumatic growth conference. And our next one's in October 26th, 27th in Canmore, Alberta, right in the Rocky Mountains. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm going to have people from Finland and United States and Australia and Canada coming to talk about their experiences of post-traumatic growth. So it's a really powerful, uplifting event.
That's awesome. Keep growing, Dan. I love it.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us. We always remind everybody who watches that if they see something, if they're feeling something, to sound the alarm.
Save a life. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on your show.